Hey guys, so I thought I'd do a little overview on Volkswagen and Porsche stock. So not going too much into the financials today, just wanted to do a sort of overview of the sort of structure and the sort of various different sides of the business. So yeah, a lot of people don't know this sort of large group of brands is all Volkswagen Group. So you have sort of Volkswagen themselves, Audi, Seat, and Skoda as the sort of, they call it passenger car side of things, sort of the everyman passenger car side. And then you have sort of Bentley, Bugatti, and Lamborghini as the sort of very high end luxury side, and sort of Porsche as the sort of general luxury, sort of mid range luxury, I guess. And then Ducati motorbikes, which a lot of people sort of don't know that they own. And then the commercial side, so sort of Volkswagen commercial, and then Scania and MAN. But they've also bought Navistar as well. So these are all in sort of various stages of going electric. Volkswagen sort of making the main push with the ID series. Audi sort of having a good go of it as well. Got a few sort of models in the global sort of top vehicles. Seat being a little bit slow on the uptake, but their little subsidiary Cupra are releasing one or two. And Skoda sort of similar, really, releasing one or two decent electric vehicles so far. The Enyaq seems quite good, but not exactly sort of electrifying the whole range. And then the luxury side does seem to be a little bit slow on the uptake. Bentley, Bugatti, and Lamborghini don't seem to have any interest in sort of going electric sort of very, very soon. They're all sort of talking about sort of 2026, 27, maybe they'll have a car. Maybe that'll get sort of accelerated, but we don't really know. Bugatti seems sort of, they're very off and on. I don't think they've sold much of anything recently from the looks of it. And then Porsche themselves are sort of going big on electric. Their Taycan is actually outselling the 911 at the moment, so that's doing quite well. And they're looking to IPO Porsche sort of at the end of the year. So obviously thinking that by itself, as a sort of transitioning to electric vehicle brand, could do quite well. And they're looking to get sort of 90 billion euros out of that, which interestingly enough is pretty much the market cap. And then yeah, Ducati doing quite well on the electric side. Bit of news for them, they're becoming the exclusive provider for the Moto E World Cup for 4 years from the looks of it. So that's pretty good. Interesting sort of article on their page. And then yeah, the electric side seems quite interesting actually. A lot of people obviously sort of compare the auto companies to sort of the pure EV, your sort of Teslas and Neos and that sort of thing, but don't really sort of compare. Or obviously Tesla aren't exactly looking like their truck is anytime soon. Not the Cybertruck, the sort of big trucks, the semi trucks. Whereas Scania actually do have electric trucks on the road and being sold, and sort of MAN are sort of getting there, a little bit behind Scania maybe. Not seeing too much in the way of sort of Volkswagen electric small vans. That seems to be on my sort of other side with Stellantis, but I'm sure they're developing. But yeah, so that's a sort of a reasonable overview of the brands themselves. Yeah, and then to the commercial side, they've also introduced this Navistar brand, sort of a US focused, very large trucks and school buses, interestingly. I know the US is sort of pushing for electric school buses as much as they can, so it'll be interesting to see if Navistar can sort of take some of that market. So yeah, they've added this to the commercial side. So looking at deliveries for around the world, this is sort of quarter one this year, January to February, compared with quarter one last year, and sort of obviously due to the chip shortage and sort of various different things, most of these sort of countries are down on production, down on sales. So yeah, it's sort of down between 10 and sort of up to 50% in some areas. Sort of South America not doing too well. Whether they're sort of prioritising Europe as much as they can, and sort of where they can sort of closer to the factories and where they think they can sell for higher prices, basically. The worldwide sort of numbers are down 23%, but I think they've been sort of focusing on the higher higher cost vehicles. We'll sort of get to later on. Revenue seems to be fairly flat. So Volkswagen themselves down about 25%. Skoda about the same. Seat a little bit more. The commercial vehicles not done quite as bad, down 15%. Audi down 17%. Lamborghini actually up on the year, which just tells you a lot. The sort of rich carry on getting richer and still buying Lamborghinis. Bentley down a little, which again you'd be fairly happy about. Porsche only down sort of less than 5%. And then, yeah, as I say, Bugatti sort of not doing a huge amount. This is up till October 2021, so they're not really sort of reporting a great deal, but yeah, they don't do a huge amount. Obviously, the cars are about £1 million each, so yeah, they don't do all that much in figures for quite a lot of money. But yeah, that's the sort of by country breakdown. So just a little bit more on the brand side and sort of sales and profit included. So the sort of Volkswagen passenger cars, for example, down quite a bit, but revenue not down quite so much, and then profit actually up quarter on quarter. So they're sort of obviously increasing prices, focusing on the higher end models where they can, and weathering the storm really, despite the sort of chip shortage. Skoda deliveries actually doing pretty well, barely down, and sort of up on revenue, but down a little bit on profit. So interesting for them. Commercial vehicles sort of pretty much down in sales, down in revenue as well, but up reasonably well on profit. And then sort of tech components and sort of consolidation, some other figures. Audi quite a bit down on deliveries, but pretty much flat on revenue. Again, sort of focusing on the higher price models, and sort of surprisingly very much up on profit. Similarly with Porsche, really, the sort of higher value Taycan models, they're releasing sort of new sort of not necessarily limited edition models, but sort of slight trim level different models, sort of coupes and that sort of thing. So they're sort of much higher priced, some of them over £100,000, which is pretty good. So you can see sort of maybe that coming into the profit figures and sort of higher revenue despite lower numbers. And then commercial vehicle side, so this includes the new Navistar brand from what I can see. So deliveries even are up, revenue is up quite significantly, and then profit is up quite significantly, but that includes an acquisition, of course. And then China, they seem to sort of break out of the sort of revenue and profit. They sort of give you a little note on here on the sort of broken out share of their profit, so not too bad. And then sort of various other financial services and energy solutions and that sort of thing. These are going to be sort of up and down, seem to bring in a fair bit of the revenue really. The automotive division is sort of 51 billion euros for the quarter, and the financial services is sort of over a fifth of that. So yeah, they do quite a lot on the sort of financing side. So just a quick look on the financial sort of stock side. So it's 95 billion euro market cap, and if you come to the statistics, you'll see it's a little bit misleading. So including all the debt, it's 210 billion euro, with the sort of market cap being a little bit off here. 210 billion euro enterprise value. Obviously, the debt is a fair chunk. So if you come to sort of the balance sheet, you can see current debt at sort of 53 billion. If we turn on the quarterly here, you can see up to most recent quarter. So current debt nearly 55 billion, and long-term debt 121 billion. So that does make them, I gather, still the most indebted company in the world. So if you're not all that keen on debt, then there may be one to stay away from. But yeah, surprisingly, obviously still with the interest rates still being rather low, it doesn't actually cost them all that much. So sort of see trailing 12 months only just over 1 billion euros in interest. Sort of going back a little further, it's been sort of 2 billion euros, which isn't all that much really. Sort of still leaves them with a hefty profit, but you could see this coming up sort of with the rising interest rates. They've got quite a lot at sort of 4, 3, 4, 5% interest, a lot of their bonds, and sort of some of them might have to be sort of the lower interest rate bonds. Some of them are sort of 1% or less. When these expire, they'll have to be refinancing them most likely at higher rates. So you could see this interest expense come up quite a bit, maybe 3 billion, 4 billion over time, and that's something to consider. But yeah, if you take even sort of 18 billion euros net income over the last 12 months compared to sort of the enterprise value of 210 billion, it's not all that bad. And if you consider it's sort of long-term debt that they can fairly easily afford, then sort of 18 billion into the 95 billion market cap is sort of amongst the lowest PEs in the auto industry, apart from maybe my other favourite, Stellantis. So, and if you come to their sort of analyst expectations, they sort of give you obviously a fairly low long-term growth per year, 7%, not too bad for a very mature company. And earnings estimates have been sort of trickling up a little over time as sort of the fears maybe are sort of quashed, and sort of next year, again, not going up quite as much as this year, sort of expecting a fairly normal year next year. So 33 euros in earnings on a 141 euro share price is pretty good. 34 euros next year. So pretty good. Revenue up from 269 billion to 285.5 billion. So incredible revenue, really. Sort of looking at 6, 7 times the revenue of Tesla. So for a 95 billion euro market cap, pretty good. So yeah, as I say, I won't go into sort of tremendous detail on the financials. That wasn't the point of this video. Just to see the sort of legacy side is making enough money for the switch to electric, really. That's sort of the focus of the company and sort of the future of the auto industry. So that's what we need to be focusing on, really, for the stock. So sort of come to Clean Technica, you can get generally some reasonably up-to-date figures on EV sales. If you come to sort of the April 2022 plug-in vehicle sales, this sort of gives you the top selling in the world. You've got sort of Tesla, say, obviously they only do basically these two models. The others don't really register on here. And you do have the Volkswagen ID4 showing on here. You've also got the Fiat 500, because I do like Stellantis, but yeah, not a huge showing from Volkswagen. Obviously, it's largely Chinese manufacturers with their sort of big push for EVs. The blue ones are plug-in hybrids, so don't really count those. But as we've seen, Volkswagen is sort of a large group of sort of smaller brands with lots and lots of models. So you can sort of see the January to April figures there, much the same. But if you come down to sort of as a total group, you can see, so world plug-in vehicle sales, they total up Volkswagen Group here, and you're looking at 194,000, including the sort of plug-in hybrids and everything, and a BYD obviously top 391,000, but a lot of those are sort of plug-in hybrids, and then sort of Tesla at 350,000. So yeah, Hyundai and Kia not doing too bad. And if you look at the 100% electric vehicle sales, so you've got obviously Tesla still top at 350,000, BYD moved down to third with the 100% electric only, 144,000, and SAIC, the sort of big conglomerate, and Volkswagen Group at 98,000 for 4 months. So I thought this was pretty good for sort of total 100% electric vehicles. Sort of people were raving when Tesla were at 500,000, and they sort of got to incredible market caps. And yeah, Volkswagen sort of going to be hopefully doing sort of 300,000 plus, and sort of add that on to the total legacy business. I thought that was pretty good. So yeah, promising numbers on the world figures. But if you come to the Europe figures, looks pretty good for Volkswagen Group and Stellantis, admittedly. On the individual car numbers for April, they got number 1 and number 2. But on the Volkswagen side, so you can see sort of Skoda doing quite well with the Enyaq. You come down to the Volkswagen ID4, Audi e-tron doing pretty well. Yeah, doing quite good. So the January to April figures, you can see Tesla Model 3 and Model Y top, but the ID4, Skoda Enyaq, and sort of Audi Q4 e-tron and the ID3, as well as sort of obviously a load of other smaller selling models, as you say, Porsche and sort of various other things like the Volkswagen E-Up. Combine these sort of all together, and it's you'll see, I believe they show it by manufacturer. So yeah, top auto brands, but the alliances, you actually have Volkswagen Group at 17.4%, as they show at the top. So you don't even have Tesla in the top 5. So Hyundai and Kia sort of 11%, BMW and Mercedes sort of trailing behind, but Stellantis doing really well and Volkswagen doing really well. Not sure whether Tesla would be actually in there. They only give it in sort of percentages, but yeah, be interesting to sort of add all the individual cars up and just see if it actually is more than Tesla. They do seem to sort of sometimes include them, sometimes not. Like they've got nothing at all for Tesla in April 2022. Whether they just sort of didn't have the deliveries that month seems unlikely, and this is obviously before sort of Tesla's Berlin factory really sort of ramps up, so got that to contend with. But yeah, Volkswagen sort of having a fairly good showing in Europe. I guess they would focus on that being a German company. So this was just a funny little article. Electrek showed Bloomberg released sort of a little 20-page report, I think it was, showing how they think VW could overtake Tesla. Um, VW themselves actually don't think they can do it by 2024, so it seems a little bit possibly sort of biased and bullish by Bloomberg here, like the picture of Jason Momoa and Henry Cavill. But they sort of give you this chart here of their sort of expectations, with sort of obviously Tesla in the yellow here, projected to still keep growing fairly well, but Volkswagen Group in the white, sort of growing faster and overtaking them by 2024. So yeah, they're not sort of putting up numbers that would suggest this so far. 2022 looks like we're not going to be sort of anywhere near these numbers. Maybe if you include sort of plug-in hybrids and they have a really explosive sort of second half of the year, but yeah, they may have to sort of catch up to get to these figures. But I mean, if we get anywhere near these sort of figures over the next couple of years, then I think maybe a bit of sort of evening out of the market caps would be in order. Also nice to just see Stellantis there in their sort of projections, rising up reasonably well. Obviously, much smaller market cap without the debt of Volkswagen, so they're sort of showing them at 1 million pure EVs by 2025, which is pretty good. But yeah, their sort of projections of Volkswagen extremely bullish, and you can sort of download the report for free if you like, and yeah, read a little bit more into it, but possibly a little bullish. And then on to the slightly complicated reason of why I own partly Volkswagen and partly Porsche stock. So Porsche Automobile Holdings SE is sort of a holding company of the Porsche family, from what I understand. And they own, so it's 20 billion, just over 20 billion euro market cap. And basically, they just own 32% of the total Volkswagen group. So Volkswagen own the Porsche company in its entirety, and obviously all the rest of this, and Porsche SE, the holding company, own 32% of all of that, 52.2% of the ordinary shares, but 30, I think just under 32% of the total market cap. So this chart is sort of a little bit nicer than the brand one that I show, sort of just showing over their sort of subsidiaries. Audi have their sort of Quattro tuning brand company, and sort of Seat have Cupra. So Cupra actually doing one of their own electric cars, the Cupra Born. So that's quite good. And they sort of show you Volkswagen have some of their own sort of partnerships and things with Ford and BMW on charging. Porsche actually own 10% of Rimac. Not sure whether this is 100% up to date. Been seeing sort of some funding rounds and that sort of thing. Wondering whether the ownership stake may have changed. But interesting to have a stake in a sort of a hypercar, they call it, all electric sort of hypercar company, supercar company maybe. And then yeah, sort of various other joint ventures with the sort of commercial side, Navistar, and then yeah, the sort of Chinese side. Basically, the Chinese side is almost all joint ventures. They're not really sort of getting into just building the giant factories themselves and going that way. They're sort of partnering up with Chinese companies, which I guess would please the Chinese government. So yeah, this is basically Porsche stock. They own a portion of all of this, and with the sort of dividends and various money that they get from that Volkswagen stake, they dividend some of it out to shareholders, and they also put some into their own investments. So you can see, obviously, Volkswagen, 53%, 31.9% of the market cap they own, invested that in 2005, but they also have a lot of other interesting companies. So they sort of got a small stake in PTV, sort of software transport modelling and sort of traffic management company. INRIX, sort of again real-time traffic data and sort of data sources comprising vehicles, smartphones, and road sensors. So they do seem to want to get a lot of data on cars, which could be sort of interesting for the autonomous side maybe down the line. Wonder if they're sort of making some of these with the view of autonomous down the line. Mark Forged, sort of 3D printing side. Surat, again, sort of 3D printing. And a little bit into LiDAR, again, sort of more on the automotive side potentially. Remote management of software and over-the-air updates. I think Volkswagen could do with a little bit of this. So whether they'll sort of maybe try and leverage that a little to help. And then, interesting, a sort of small and medium-sized satellites company. Interesting. And sort of health and monitoring of semiconductors. So all of these sort of do somewhat lend themselves, maybe not the space side, but somewhat lend themselves to sort of the automotive industry. It seems to be an area they're interested in. So yeah, Porsche Stock, you basically get sort of your big stake in Volkswagen and a load of other sort of smaller investments. So seems interesting to me. I'm still sort of reading up on exactly how they'll handle the spin-off of Porsche itself. So you'll have Porsche, potentially Porsche Holding Company, not owning any of Porsche AG themselves. They would just own shares in Volkswagen, which don't own Porsche anymore. But yeah, need to do a little bit more sort of reading up on those. But yeah, so that's the sort of reason for holding Porsche. Porsche stock. It's sort of, if you add up the Volkswagen stake and the sort of Porsche smaller investments, it's considerably more than the market cap of Porsche SE. Sort of over, what we got, 95 billion euros. Just the Volkswagen stake is sort of 30 billion euros, and then sort of the other smaller holdings sort of probably bring you to 31, 32 billion euros. So a significant discount there, which I'm expecting over time they may be able to close. So yeah, that's my sort of overview on Porsche and Volkswagen. So leave your thoughts in comments below, and like and subscribe. See you soon.